So today I'm going to be doing a review of the newest Falcon from Laurier. This is their version 2. This is in 36 millimeters, so let's see whether it was a hit or a miss. Can have a diameter of 36 millimeters, a lug to lug of 44, a height of a little over 10 at 10.7, and a lug width of 20 millimeters. Some other specifications: we have the Miyota 90S5 movement in here, same thing as in the Neptune. It's going to have around the 40-hour-ish power reserve mark. It's going to have that very, very thin profile, which you can definitely tell there. And we're going to have 100 meters of water resistance with a screw down crown, that domed acrylic crystal there, and BGW9 applied to all the Lume. As you can see, we have pretty much the exact same layout as we saw in the Neptune. We have the 3, 6, 9, and 12 being the arrow markers, and the other remaining being the circular pips with a minute track on the outside there. Very cleanly done. Again, not much text on the dial. They just kept it Laurier, automatic, and Falcon. Very clean, very simple. You get a nice clean monochromatic look with the blue, the silver, and the white. And it's nice because the texture adds a little bit of visual interest to the watch. It's enough to where it's not always popping out at you, but it's a little nice visual break from, I guess, what would otherwise be a pretty plain watch. And just as in the Neptune, we have the same Aquaterra kind of styled hands. Works really well with the design here. Really, this one is kind of almost going up against a Tudor Black Bay 36, both in size, in color, in general styling, and for a lot cheaper, and you know, that's not bad. Getting closer to that dial, we can see the pattern is really, really intricate, really nicely done. Again, it's all these very small diamond shapes put together. It is very cool. It would have been even crazier if they would have had a kind of like a texture inside of the diamond itself, but I think maybe that would have been a little bit overkill. It really is nicely done. There's no misprints in the dial. There's no diamond shapes that are, you know, done incorrectly. So really well done there with the general dial itself. Just like on the Neptune, we're going to have this slightly more creamish leaning Lume plot right there with the white base to it. So we are going to see a little roughness around the hands there, and for $600, or sorry, for $499, it's really a watch that you can expect that kind of thing to happen. It's not going to be perfect, and from the wrist, from anything that's not a macro point of view, it's going to look pretty well done. The texture is amazing. All the printing is really well done. Very clean, very nice. Moving on to the case here, we have a very, very simple case. We're going to have the vertically brushed lugs. We're going to have the horizontal brushing on the sides. A nice signed Laurier crown there with their logo. It's not technically signed, it's like stamped in, but you get the idea. A very, very plain case back with just a circular printing of the Laurier logo. We're gonna have this really nice chamfer here along the side. I do believe on the Neptune that chamfer is a little bit more pronounced. I'm not gonna swear to that, but that's just the feeling that I get. Either way, it is a nice little breakup and finishing on the watch, a nice little point of interest the eye goes to. And very similarly, we have a tiny little ring of polish on the very bottom part of the bezel here. Again, not something you're ever really going to notice too often, but when it hits the light in certain ways, when you're outside, under a tree, etc., it's going to kind of shine in a different way because of that little extra finishing. I think the crown here looks a lot more proportional than it does on the Neptune series, which is nice. Something to mention about the crown itself, it feels a little, I guess, lackluster in its operation. Compared especially to the Neptune in itself, it takes a lot less screws to get fully screwed in, and once it finally hits that popped out position, it's not a very aggressive pop. It's a very, very soft pop to where sometimes you won't even kind of notice the crown has left its knurling. A little bit weird, and it's kind of a similar thing when you pop the crown out. It's not a convincing click when you put the crown out into the time setting position. It's more of a soft thud, which again you might not really feel too often. I don't know if these problems are specific to the model that I have here. The Neptune that I have has the exact same movement, the winding operation, etc. And the crown operation is, one, a lot more audible, and two, a lot more reassuring than on here. So just something to note. Doesn't affect function at all. I mean, the watch is running at 9 seconds a day, still winds very well, still sets the time very well, but you know, just something that you should know. Moving on to the bracelet, we have the exact same bracelet as we have on Laurier's other models, this nice square linked design with the very, very dramatic taper from 20. It goes to 16 at about right here, and then 16 along the whole rest of the length of the bracelet. You got that nice deployant clasp, double push button. You got 3 holes of micro adjust there, some nice polished chamfering along the sides of the clasp end, some nice Laurier logo on the clasp here. Very good bracelet here. As you can see, we have the screwed links, lots of articulation in those lugs, or not the lugs, but the links rather, and just the way that you can really drape this watch around the wrist, it's just going to conform perfectly, and it does wear very comfortably. The micro just lets you tone in that fit really nicely, and yeah, just well done on the bracelet. And one last thing to mention, we have drilled lug holes, of course, perfect for changing straps, and the lugs do just about meet the case back, so it will wear very close to the wrist. I mean, there's probably going to be no problem with it wearing on the wrist based on how thin it is already, but a nice way to create a more ergonomic design. Speaking of that, let's put it on the wrist. Earlier today I was wearing this cool little watch from Humism. So here on my 6.5 inch wrist, you can see the 36mm wears great. It is just a really nice watch, perfect sizing, crown's not too large, lug to lug is very constrained. As you can see there, the watch is just melting into that wrist, just becoming really just one with the wrist. So overall, Laurier just did really, really good on the design, the dimensions, the specifications of this watch, because it just does wear well. The benefit too of this very blocky, squarish designed bracelet, I wouldn't say it is blingy, but it just adds some nice visual interest to the watch, something that I guess keeps your eye entertained. Really comfortable wearing, and you know, there's really not much more I can say about it. So here we have the Laurier on this really nice silicone NATO strap. You can just search up silicone NATO strap on Amazon, it'll come up. It's like $12. But it adds a nice summerish vibe to the watch. It's very, very comfortable. It is very, very thin. With those 20mm lugs, you're definitely gonna have a lot of fun looking at different straps, and this has definitely been one of my favorites. A kind of fun off the beaten path combination is this cork strap from WatchGecko. They did redesign their cork range, so it's not gonna be the exact same styling as this, but you get the general idea. I think the nice like tannish kind of color coming off of this strap really plays well with that blue dial. Overall, just really a fun combination, really cool. And not a lot of people walking around with cork straps. And if you plan on getting the blue Falcon, get this strap. This has definitely been my favorite combination so far, this blue strap by Collareb. Don't remember what model line it is, but you'll definitely be able to tell by just the stitching pattern and the coloration. Very, very nice play with that blue dial on this kind of like darkish blue, rusted looking at times leather strap. This is definitely a great almost everyday watch. It looks good on the bracelet, but maybe if you need to dress it up a little bit, just throw it on a nice strap. And last but not least, a nice kind of fun summery style combination with this white silicone strap from Archer Straps. I think it just looks really nice, pairs really well with that Lume signature, and it's really, really comfortable. Getting into the Lume here, you can see it's really nicely applied, no different than on the Neptune version. One thing I will notice is it seems almost like the halos or the appearance of these pseudo pips along the edge of the acrylic dome actually looks a lot more vibrant on this model than it does on the Neptune. Maybe just a trick of the eye, maybe actually true, but just something I noticed. All the elements are loomed pretty evenly, pretty nicely. There's no differences in color temperature. Even got a nice little lume on that seconds hand there, so if for some reason you need to be telling time in a very, very dark place, this will help you. It doesn't last forever, but while it lasts, it is pretty good. And a quick comparison to the normal Timex Snoopy I always use. Color temperatures are pretty much the same. Very well done application. As you can see, they're almost as bright as each other. The Laurier might even be a little brighter slightly. As you can see, pretty good job. So pros and cons of this watch, I think one of the biggest pros would just be the sizing of it. You're not going to find a lot of watches at 36mm, nonetheless at this price point and kind of just for this build quality. It is pretty unique, it wears well, and I think they really kind of did a home run with just the specifications, the dimensions, and the overall look of the watch. Speaking more on the look of the watch, I think one of the biggest pros also is just the texturing and the dial. It adds a different kind of point of interest in the watch. It's not just about it being 36mm, it also has this kind of nice visual interest. It has this nice depth that is added to the dial, and the texture is done well and looks good on the watch. And last but not least, the bracelet is really, really well made. It is really articulate. It has a lot of kind of visual presence in a way. The fact that it's so angular and square compared to more like a more rounded, flatter, oysterish style shape is interesting and just very, very different. Something that I've really never seen before, and I really commend Laurier on that styling. So cons of the watch, I think the bracelet, while being a big pro, is also a con just in the sense that the bracelet tapers too quickly. It goes from 20 to 16 in about 3 links, which is kind of aggressive. I've never really seen a bracelet designed like that before, or at least that tapers so quickly. So it just wasn't my taste. I think it leaves the watch looking a little top heavy, a little almost awkward proportionally. But if that's something you can get over, or something you don't even notice, then good on you. It's definitely pretty much a great bracelet otherwise. And the only other real con that I had was my crown just was kind of weird. It was a little lackluster. It had no audible clicks in any of the settings or even when popping out the crown. It was just something that I've never experienced in any watch before. It was something that I didn't expect because the Laurier had such a clicky crown. I mean, not the Laurier, but the Neptune that I have. I hope it's only with my model, which sucks for me, but that'd be good if you order your Falcon and it's perfectly fine. And if this is a problem with the entire range, it's something that Laurier should definitely look into. So final thoughts on the Falcon, and I think it is really a great watch. It is well priced at $500. The only real competition is like the Traska Summitier, which is slightly bigger, a different design, and I guess almost a little bit more modern in a couple ways. But I think what Laurier has is pretty unique. The dial texture is awesome, the sizing is awesome, everything about it is pretty well executed. It is one of those watches that kind of fits every category. It's a go anywhere, do anything watch. It fits in the boardroom, it fits in on the beach. It is slim enough to where it fits under a dress cuff, but it has the water resistance, it has the durability that you need. If you're thinking about getting the Falcon, I don't think you'll be disappointed as long as you're used to the smaller sizing. It's not going to feel like a big watch at all. So I hope you're happy if you get one. I hope you got something out of this video, and I'll see you in another one.